be resourceful in Vietnam.
I don't like disorder in my room. Clean it up, Tay.
Sit, yo.
This is my class, Rodriguez.
Just some weld.
Thank you.
You with me, and you will suffer my wrath.
The story begins with Jonathan Shale, a highly trained mercenary and former military operative, and completes missions with his elite and highly capable team. They complete the mission successfully, but not long after discover something menacing. They find out that the operation they completed was an unauthorized one, which is shocking. As a result, they all are dismissed from active duty. With no mission to perform and no instructions to follow, the team members go on their separate ways. Shale decides to go back to his home in Miami and figure out what should be done next. Then the scene shifts to a cheery and vibrant Miami city, and the camera zooms in on Jane Hetzko, an ambitious and thoughtful high school teacher. She is in the middle of conducting a class and dedicatedly wants to help her class learn and grow. But the classroom's tranquility is quickly ruined when chaos erupts on the school campus. A fight breaks between the students, and it becomes clear that the fight is not a random tussle. Entire struggle looks pre-planned in order to target one particular student. Jane and another teacher, Mr. Sherman, rush in to stop the brawl. With some difficulty, they manage to contain the situation and protect the targeted student. But the student declares that he didn't need to be saved, and it's obvious that he was trying to protect himself from the consequences of labeled as weak. Later, Jane tries to talk to a student who actually started it all, Juan Lucas. He is not some ordinary troublesome student. Rather, he is a gang leader of Kings of Destruction, KOD for short. Jane tries to talk to him in a firm yet kind tone, showing concern and asking to make better choices for the future. However, Juan is cold towards her and mockingly threatens her to stay out of his business. Somewhat shaken but adamant, both Jane and Sherman visit Principal Rolle and urge him to take action against Juan and his gang. Jane also shares that she was explicitly threatened by Juan and strong action must be taken against him. But Rolle dismisses them by emphasizing that there isn't enough solid evidence about the threat, and he can't expel Juan on this basis. This angers Jane, and she walks out of the office, assuring Rolle that she'll bring evidence against Juan. After school, Jane reaches her car and finds herself surrounded by the KOD gang. Her car's keyhole is closed shut by gum, which makes it difficult for her to insert the key. The gang members take the advantage of this opportunity to verbally harass Jane and throw insults at her. Jane manages to get into her car, but the gang members throw themselves at her car and continue mocking her shamelessly, but she drives away successfully. When Jane reaches her home, Shale is waiting for her, and it is revealed that Jane is Shale's girlfriend. She finds this as a comforting surprise, and Shale talks about the retirement from his military service and an uncertain future. After some time, Shale receives a voicemail from one of his teammates. He learns from the teammate that there is a possible job offer that could help him earn some money. They meet at a strip club to discuss it, and Joey Six, who's the same teammate, advises him to think about the job. Shale is introduced to the prospective client and a competitor named John Janus, who will later turn out to be a dangerous man who tries to kill Shale. Shale learns that the job involves guarding drug shipments and keeping them hidden from rival gangs and government interference. Shale feels uneasy with the job as he is a man with principles. He refuses to be part of something illegal. After Shale turns down the offer with dignity, Janus takes up the job instead. The following morning, Jane decides to jog near the beach, unaware that someone from the KOD gang is awaiting her. As she passes by the gang member, he suddenly strikes her with a wooden bat and breaks her leg. As he starts to attack Jane more, Shale intervenes and stops him. Shale then takes Jane quickly to a nearby hospital. While recovering from the injury, Jane shares her doubts about the attack, that it feels to be planned and conducted by someone from school. She requests Shale to do something about her absence in school for the next couple of days. Shale notices how deeply scared and tense Jane is, so he promises her that he won't let anything bad happen to her. And he won't let the people who are behind the attack get away with this. Shale leaves Jane at the hospital to rest and decides to take her place in the school and go undercover. Determined to find out the person responsible for Jane's condition, Shale starts preparing for his new mission along with his team. They create a plan to infiltrate the school and hide Shale's real identity and his connection with Jane. Shale uses his alias as James Smith and submits a job application at the school and gets invited for an interview. During the interview, Rolle seems to be friendly and welcoming and confirms to Smith that he'll be on probation for a short period of time. Smith assures that he will do his best as a substitute for Jane. Underneath the calmness and professionalism, Smith is focused on his hidden mission. On his first day as a teacher, Smith walks in a classroom full of chaotic and disrespectful students. The room appears to be unorganized and disruptive, but Smith doesn't let this affect his demeanor.
Good morning, class. I will be Miss Hesco's substitute for the next few days.
He calmly walks up to the class and starts taking attendance. While observing the students, he begins to understand the problems within the school. Many of the students are not concerned about learning, and discipline is not present among them. Later in the staff lounge, Smith meets Mr. Sherman and school librarian Hannah Dillon. They all have a brief but important discussion in which Sherman explains about the KOD gang being very dangerous and how they've been controlling the school through fear. Hannah points out that the gang may be behind the attack on Jane, also hinting that the principal Rolle might be working with the gang. However, Sherman defends Rolle, explaining that Rolle used to be a police officer, therefore he may not be involved with the gang. Despite Sherman's defense, Smith becomes suspicious of Rolle. During a conversation with Rolle, Smith notices some unusual things like an expensive gold watch that Rolle is wearing, which can't be afforded with the salary given by school. Their conversation gradually becomes a battle of wit and intelligence as they both try to test each other by gauging reactions. In the end, Rolle implies that the watch was a gift from a student and power is more important than justice, which only deepens Smith's doubts. Later that night, Smith reconnects with his military team and outlines a plan to secretly observe the school premises by installing cameras inside to monitor all the activities of the KOD members and gather evidence. His team hesitates at first, but eventually agrees to his plan. Next day in class, Smith starts a lesson on the Vietnam War. As he turns his back to write something on board, a student named Tay throws a crushed soda can at him. However, Smith catches it mid-air using his lightning-fast reflexes and throws it back at Tay. This stuns all the students, and Tay gets up to fight with his classmates cheering him on. Smith easily defends himself by twisting Tay's arm and pinning him down without exerting any excessive force. Smith then approaches Rodriguez, who had been carrying an ice pick. Smith asks him to hand over the pick calmly, but when he refuses, Smith twists his arm just enough so that he drops the pick. This sends a clear message to the unruly students that Smith is not a teacher to be messed with. The whole class falls silent, and Smith begins teaching, earning control and respect in the class. Tez and Rodriguez later go to the nurse and report what happened to Rolle. He then sends the guard Marvin to Smith's class. However, Marvin is shocked to see the class in discipline and interested in listening to Smith attentively. He comes back to Rolle and updates him about the strange situation. Rolle is surprised by this and decides to hold off any punishment till the class ends. As the class proceeds, the atmosphere becomes tense as Juan Lacas, leader of the KOD gang, tries to get under Smith's skin. He asks with a mocking tone if Smith has ever been shot before. Question is intended to be intimidating, but Smith remains calm and undeterred. Later in the day, Smith keeps an eye on the school through the hidden security cameras. As he watches the monitors closely, he spots Rolle purposefully walking towards his classroom. Smith quickly puts everything in place to appear normal. Rolle brings up some concerns about students thinking of filing lawsuits against Smith. Rolle asks Smith to apologize to avoid losing his job, but Smith demonstrates his knowledge of court proceedings and replies that he can't be terminated without proper procedure. He also reminds Rolle that firing a teacher requires at least 2 weeks' notice. Smith's firm stance unsettles Rolle, who was expecting to dominate and scare Smith. Growing suspicious of Smith's confidence and composure, Rolle decides to dig deeper in his background and orders a full investigation into Smith's identity, but ends up finding fake documents and false records carefully planted by Smith's team for their deep cover operation. Later on, Smith drives Jane back to her home, and she finds some heartfelt notes and letters by her students showing concern for her well-being, which moves Jane emotionally. The next morning, Smith returns to school ready to teach again. Juan and his gang come deliberately late to the class, trying to provoke Smith. Smith calls out Juan and his tardiness in front of the class. Juan sarcastically offers to write sorry on the board 10 times, but Smith ups the ante by asking him to write it 100 times. Juan realizes that he can to defy Smith in front of the class and agrees to write, however silently threatens him. Shifting the mood of the class, Smith starts a deep and meaningful discussion with the students. He uses the example of a student, Jerome, sparking a conversation that becomes a thoughtful lesson for the class. He then asks the class about their future goals and consequences of their current actions. During the discussion, the defensive attitude of the students changes and they begin to think beyond the streets. After the lesson ends, Rolle unexpectedly appears again. But this time he compliments Smith on his way of handling Juan. He states that it is very impressive that Smith managed the class without resorting to violence. He invites Smith to meet him later in the day. Unknown to Smith, Rolle has some other plans as he meets Juan secretly and arranges a hit on Smith as they believe it is imperative to get rid of him for good. Luckily, Smith is one step ahead of them and watches their meeting on the camera and prepares for it accordingly. He gears up for a potential ambush by sunset. Wearing a bulletproof vest and choosing a strategic spot in the school library, he waits patiently. Then Juan and some goons storm into the library and a violent confrontation ensues. Smith retaliates fiercely using his military tactics, and one by one he manages to take down the attackers by throwing their bodies out of the library windows. Just as Smith prepares to whoop Juan's ass, another goon gets hold of Smith's gun and shoots at him. Juan then orders the goon to kill the librarian and split their ways. Just then, Smith gets up and saves Hannah and throws Juan out of the window. Juan lands on his friends and is dumbfounded to see Smith's exceptional strength. As Smith walks out of school, he encounters Rolle, who is shocked to see Smith alive. He tries to cover up his surprise, and Smith plays along pretending nothing has happened. He asks Rolle about the agenda of the meeting between them. Caught off guard, Rolle mumbles that it's too late. Meanwhile, Sherman visits Jane at her home and comforts her. As they talk, Sherman begins to realize that Smith might actually be Shale, who's a former soldier. Parallelly, Smith's teammate Joey monitors the gang's activities and follows Juan to a location and messages the details of Juan's whereabouts to Smith. Smith goes to Jane later that day, but Jane confronts him about the secret mission he has been carrying out in her absence at school and becomes visibly upset by his decoy. Smith explains that he suspects Rolle to be involved with the KOD gang, and he is committed to take him down to protect the school and students. Smith's team continues the surveillance of the gang, and one day Joey calls Smith to head to a location near the port, believing that a major drug deal is about to go down. Smith arrives and they both witness the KOD gang negotiating with buyers. Once the deal is done, Smith and Joey launch a surprise attack. While Smith handles the gang members, Joey takes care of the buyers on the boat. In the middle of the chaos, one of Smith's teammate, Holland, who was against this mission, comes out of nowhere and helps one of the KOD gang members and asks him to take down Smith. A brutal fight breaks out between Smith and the gang member, but Smith eventually gets the upper hand and defeats the member. Seeing Smith's determination, Holland decides to support him and shoots the gang member. They seize the drug money and throw away the drugs in the ocean. Next day, Rolle hears of the incident in the news, and as he processes this information, the drug lord calls him and furiously threatens him over the loss of money and drugs. He demands repayment, and in a panic state, Rolle rushes to the school and confronts Juan. During the confrontation, it becomes clear that Smith was behind the drug bust. Just then, Smith announces that the money from the drug bust has been donated to school and students can avail free pizza. In a fit of anger, Rolle fires Smith on the spot in front of his students. However, Smith's good deeds earn the respect and admiration of the students and Sherman, who offers to help Smith more directly, but gets a warning from Smith to be more cautious as Rolle is working with the enemy. Sherman believes that Rolle is innocent as his judgment is blinded by loyalty and trust. Later in the night, Smith is again subjected to a violent attack, as KOD members and their allies desperately try to eliminate Smith, but he narrowly escapes the assassination attempt. Meanwhile, Sherman, along with the student who works against the KOD gang, gets caught up in the criminal dealings happening down the school basement. Sherman witnesses Rolle being involved in the illegal business and thinks of gathering some evidence. Unfortunately, he is ambushed by the gang. He creates a distraction so that the student can escape and find Smith. However, he is killed by Rolle once he is captured. The student who escaped meets with school authorities and reveals what happened with Sherman, which spread quickly in the news. Rolle had also spread false rumors of Smith's death in the school, and many students mourn his supposed death. Suddenly, Smith appears to everyone's delight, and his unexpected return causes fear and confusion among the KOD gang. Smith's survival becomes a clear sign that the corrupt forces cannot win so easily. With tension escalating in the premises, Smith confronts another member, Wolfson, who is secretly supporting the drug operations and his involvement in the criminal and illegal activities. This confrontation reveals the depth of the corruption at the very roots of the school's leadership. Smith assaults Wolfson until he gives information of the whereabouts of Rolle and Juan. Meanwhile, the KOD retaliates by launching a violent attack on Jane by entering her home and breaking windows to threaten Smith. The student who had witnessed Sherman's murder tries to find Smith with the help of another student, and in that pursuit happens to visit Jane's home at the same time when the KOD gang is there. However, Juan captures them and ties them along with Jane and patiently waits for Smith's return. Smith arrives just in time, and after a few initial attacks, he is overpowered by the gang. Juan realizes that Shale and Smith are one person and tells his bosses about this revelation. Upon hearing this, the drug lord orders Juan to finish him once and for all, which shows how far the gang is willing to operate their drug business in the school. When Juan prepares to shoot Shale, the doorbell rings and Juan forces Jane to answer the door. The person on the door turns out to be Jane's landlady, and Jane tries to appear normal and convinces her to go away. Shale uses this as a distraction and stabs the man standing above him and takes down most of the gang members. However, Juan uses Jane as a human shield, and Shale is unable to rescue her. He is forced to put his gun down, and just when Juan is aiming to shoot Shale, the male student, who was also tied down in Jane's house, shoots Juan at the right opportunity. After the gang has been subsided, Shale focuses on taking down the main person behind all this, Rolle. The story builds towards a climatic final battle back at the school's vicinity. Shale and his elite team prepare to face off the remaining KOD gang in the school in the last desperate effort to reclaim their power over the school. The fight is suspenseful, intense, and full of chaos. School property is severely destroyed in the crossfire between the KOD gang and Shale's team. The peaceful institution is turned into a war zone with the loss of several lives, which highlights the dangerous consequences of the gang's influence. Despite the destruction and chaos, Shale and his team fight back with skill and resilience and are successful in dismantling the gang members and eliminating their influence one by one. Some of the team members of Shale also die in this conflict, and at one point Rolle comes from wherever he was hiding and shoots Holland from the back. He then awaits Shale's arrival so that he can kill him. But Smith is smart and cautiously makes his move by turning the lights off before exposing himself. A fight ensues between Rolle and Shale tactically overpowers Rolle. However, he is shot in the shoulder by one of the KO'd members, but Holland shoots down the member while he's taking his final breath. Shale and Rolle are left alone, and a hand-to-hand combat ensues between them, with Rolle pulling a gun at Shale and asking why he is doing all this, to which Shale replies that some things just can't be taught, and lands a final blow at Rolle's face, sending him to his end. Shale comes out of the school and finds Joey hurt but alive. They are the only ones left after the brutal fight, but now that the KO'd gang and corrupt leaders have been removed, the school and its community can thrive and rebuild the environment as the one filled with hope and learning.